guys. Welcome to another episode of Evolve. I am your host, Monette Brann-Natta, and I am so happy to have you here with me this week to continue the discussion. Now, this week, a couple of things have been on my mind. So, we're going to go to school, and I have a guest that's wonderful that's going to help take us to school and help raise our vibration and consciousness a little bit. But before we get into that, I want to set this up so you understand what has been on my mind. We have been talking a lot in the past year and a half to 2 years about what seems like the rash of police shootings and this huge conversation about blue lives and black lives, whether one is right, whether one is wrong, whether one's a terrorist group, whether one's just trying to advocate for humanity. And I have some thoughts on this. Recently, a video on Facebook went viral, and a woman was pulled over, and she made a video from the incident, not while it was happening, but afterwards, and she was sobbing in the car when she made the video. She wasn't speeding, but she was pulled over, and she feared for her life, and she wasn't sure if she wouldn't become the next news headline. But the officer was kind, and he said, "Ma'am, you were swerving. Have you been drinking?" And she explained that she was driving across country to relocate to a new home, which was clear by the boxes and the luggage that were in the back of the minivan. And she said she may have dozed off, and he agreed. He said he sees it all the time, and he gave her a warning. He said that he was worried about her, and he just wanted her to arrive safely. She was overwhelmed by his kindness, while simultaneously being in fear. She said she broke down crying in front of him on the side of the road, and he hugged her, and he asked her not to cry. She said that she stuttered, and she said, I thought. And he said, "I know what you thought. We're all not like that." And he parted ways. She was grateful and relieved, and she was overwhelmed by his kindness, and she wanted someone to know that she wasn't killed by the cops. In fact, she was treated humanely. And that day, her story was on the news. What she thought happened, but not in the way she thought it would happen. And that is the reality of a minority or a black person's perception of the police. Now, this is a woman that was upstanding. She had no issues, no tickets, no warrants. She was just a mom moving her stuff in a minivan who was tired. And that cop was really nice to her. So I want to be really clear. This is not about me giving talking points of propaganda, but I think that it's important to understand both sides and to have a discussion. And I, too, have recently had an experience like that. Just a few weeks ago, my mother and I were on the way home from an event, and I made a really silly traffic stop. I was sitting at a light, and there was a light in front of me. If you're familiar with Melbourne and Strawbridge Avenue, I was sitting at one light, and I was right up underneath it, maybe a little too close in my eagerness to get through it, and I stopped because I realized I wouldn't. And the light in front of me turned green, and so in my periphery, I saw green. It thought it was time for me to go, but in fact, my light was red. And so I went, and behind me was this cop in a SUV. I had seen him the whole time. I had my seatbelt on. We were obeying all the laws of the traffic, except for when in my periphery I thought my light was green. So I pulled right over to this little cafe called the Nome Cafe. I knew I was wrong, and I was upset, and I was nervous because I, too, have my own perceptions of what might happen with a police officer. No matter how intelligent I am or how much I know I don't have any issues or arrests or warrants, I still worry because I see what can happen. I'm the type of person that records police, actually, sometimes when I see them arresting people, because I never know what is going to happen. And that's my social justice warrior that's always like, let's be safe, let's keep everybody safe. And so I pulled over, and I gave all of the things that I needed to give to the police officer, and except for my ID. He asked for that, and I gave him my debit card because I was so nervous. So that lets you know that there was a real fear that I had. He was a nice cop. He was very kind. He ran my stuff. He said, "Is there anything you want to tell me?" And by the end of it, he gave me back my stuff. He said, "I saw what happened. I know you totally didn't need to do that. You pulled right over." He parroted back to me all of the things that I had done right. He said, you had your stuff out the window for me. You guys had your seatbelt on, whatever. He just told me all of these things, and he said, thank you so much. And I was in tears myself, not trying to get out of a ticket because I didn't know what was going to happen. But I was so nervous because I thought, oh, goodness, is this going to go right or wrong for me? That's a real fear that people have. And I've never been in trouble, really, and so it's not maybe normal or sane to think that I would worry about that. But as a black woman, I did worry about it. And he reassured me, too. He didn't hug me or anything, but he was so kind. It made me want to write a letter to Wayne Ivey, the sheriff of our town, and say, wow, today I was treated nicely. But that seems to be the exception. And that's what we're going to talk about today, that and a little bit about respectability politics. And these two stories are examples of the positive outcome. But unfortunately, we're made aware that all endings don't turn out this way. And that's what my guest here today is here to chime in on from her perspective. She is smart as a whip. She is a millennial who has grown up in a world that is very aware of social injustices. And I'm always amazed at her insight and wisdom. I've often wondered how she's evolved to her current way of thinking, especially because she's part of the majority. How did she get here? So I'm so excited for you all to meet this woman who would never call herself an activist, but who I have observed actively seeking to shift conversations and raise awareness. So she's an activist in my eyes, no matter what she says. She happens to also be my editor, who helps to smooth out all of my articles and often saves me from indulging in my love of commas, which I do have an affinity for. But most importantly, she is my friend. So I am so happy to have you on the show today, Vena. Welcome to Evolve.
Hi.
Hi. So we're going to jump right into it. You heard my stories there, both good stories, which it's nice to be able to say that. It's nice to have that perspective for myself. But like I said, I am that person that might record a cop and have with my partner while and my partner is Caucasian, so he's saying, get in the car, because he just is like, he doesn't understand why would he do that. Now he does. And the first time I did it, I remember him being like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm making sure that everybody stays alive, and if anybody happens to die, that it's known. So I'm that person, and I know from our conversations that you, too, maybe not are recording cops, but definitely are concerned about the injustices that you see. And I'm wondering, what, if anything, what provided you with this kind of point of view? Because it doesn't seem like it is the majority's point of view. How did you develop your ideas about what is right and wrong, and maybe police interaction?
Well, I mean, I grew up near, where you were, but my dad, ever since I was little, my parents got divorced very early, and so he lived in a lot of alcoholics, drug addicts, and so the places I lived, I did get to see it a lot more than I guess probably some of the other kids that I maybe knew.
Right.
So I guess it always was logical, like, cops are scary and they can do whatever they want. And so it doesn't take it to be like, oh yeah, I mean, that happens all the time. Like,
right.
Just seeing it and actually seeing it happen, that's not difficult to see those videos and be like, and believe that, the cops are definitely doing things wrong.
Absolutely, absolutely. And here's the thing. I want to see this. We as humans, whenever we're in quote unquote trouble, whether it's going to the principal's office or being called on something by your parent, we all get that feeling of like, oh crap, what did I do? I'm in trouble. That's the feeling we get. So I don't think that other people in our society, whether they're white or black or Spanish, don't feel a bit of trepidation if they get pulled over. I think that's a normal human reaction. But what I've been wanting to convey and have everyone understand is that it's elevated for people of color. It truly is. It's like I just said, it's my experience, and I've never been in trouble. I have no reason to be worried, but I am worried, and I was worried, and I was in tears. And it wasn't because he was mean. He was actually awesome. But I felt that, and that's what I want people to know. Yes, we all have a reaction to being pulled over. We all are like, oh, no, what did I do? But I've seen videos where other people of the majority are pulled over, and they're almost indignant. And they're like, what have I done? And they're mean. And I would never even, like, it's all yes, sir, and no, sir. And, do you understand what I mean? There's a difference, I think, in the way we experience it.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think I think about those videos where people get indignant. What people don't understand is, like, you have a right to get indignant. You can't just be pulled over for no reason. You can't be arrested for no reason. Resisting arrest is not a reason to arrest somebody. Like, you have to have a reason, but these cops don't. And so what people don't understand is, like, you can say, like, oh, well, I wouldn't do that. Maybe they should just act differently. But that's not how it works. Like, this is a system that's the issue. because these cops are realizing they can get away with doing things they're not supposed to be doing.
Well, and you know what they say, when the cat's away or when something's away, the mice will play. I feel like because what you just made is a great point, because they have been, a majority, let's say, of them have been able to get away with literal murder at times, that it emboldens the others to behave as such. And there are all kinds of social experiments that are done when you remove or give authority, absolute power to a certain group. What is the saying? Absolute power corrupts absolutely. So this is what I think we're experiencing. And no, not everyone's like that. Like my stories to lead in here this morning, they're not like that, everybody. Some of them are nice. And I could see the kindness in the cop that pulled me over space as he was saying, like, to me in his own quiet way, because, you know, I do my readings and I'm very empathetic. And he was saying to me with his energy, don't worry, like, you're fine. Nothing's going to happen to you. And I appreciate you for doing what you need to do. And there was this human exchange, but I don't know that a lot of people get to see that. So, then we come to the debate about Blue Lives and Black Lives Matter. And this has bothered me the whole time. Not because I don't appreciate cops, because, again, my experiences have not been what everybody else's experience have been. But I see what the point is, and I'm wondering for you, are you able to see both sides of the Black Lives Matter and the Blue Lives Matter debate?
I understand both arguments, but I think that people assume when you're like, can you see both sides, that you're understanding and accepting both sides, but that's not necessarily true. I understand both sides. Is absolutely wrong.
Okay, could you repeat the last sentence because it kind of broke up? But what did you say?
I think that people think that, you know, when you understand both sides, it means you agree in some way with both. But that's
right.
Not necessarily true. I understand both sides, and I understand the arguments, but I definitely think Blue Lives Matter is wrong.
Okay, and why do you feel that is wrong?
Well, Blue Lives, that's not a real thing. That's a job. You chose that. It's clock in and out. You know, black you don't get to shed that, you know, at 5 o'clock when your shift is over.
Wow, that's probably the most succinct way I've ever heard it put. Wow, that's so true. As a black person, that is how I felt. I've never articulated it that way. For our listeners, so you understand, Dina is Caucasian. She is a white person. So that's, again, why I've always been blown away by some of her views. And she's very sure and stands in her truth about them. But that's right. And what Dina said, in case you didn't hear, she said, you don't get to shed your skin color and clock out of blackness when you clock out at 5. There is no clocking out of your blackness. The thing that bothered me about the Blue Lives and Black Lives Matter, not that we shouldn't be respectful of cops, not that they don't literally put their lives on the line, like we saw recently last year with the Pulse shooting in Orlando, that cops were, you know, going in and they're saving lives and they're being strategic and they're helping people escape. So they put their lives on the line every day, not just in those extreme situations. But the fact is that when people were saying, like, this is a terrorist group, of course, in any group, I think that there are people that go really to the far extreme. But what it initially started being was like, our lives matter too. Our lives matter too, and it doesn't seem that it matters. It seems like there's a disproportional rate of it not mattering because there are no consequences for when we are killed, injured, or handled egregiously in an arrest. And there are no consequences. It just seems like we are it's fine to do this to us. And again, we talk about those differences with watching other counterparts be arrested, and they're indignant and almost mean to the cops. And I'm always, truly appalled. And I know that that's the general consensus. I can't speak for every black person, but for friends of mine, of Spanish minorities, friends, black, whatever, when we are watching, it's almost like a comedy when we watch Caucasian people get arrested, because we're like, we could never do that. We would never do that. We would never even dream of it. So I think that's such a good point you make, that you don't clock out of it. I think that cops' lives, of course, matter, but I felt like the rebuttal was a way to